to welcome Bill Thompson, the chapter president of Sleep in Heavenly Peace. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started with this program?
Sure. I had heard about it a couple of summers ago, and it almost sounded too good to be true with what was taking place out west, so I did some research and came to realize that my thought process with the needs that kids had were something besides food and clothing. So once I realized that there was more to it than that, I jumped on a plane, headed out west to Idaho, and spent a couple of days out there to check the program out, and decided that it's really something we needed here in East Tennessee. So that's basically how I got started.
Okay.
All right, so really you are the pioneer bringing this program and this work into the East Tennessee region then.
Right.
That'd be correct, Bill.
Right.
And of course that's one of the reasons why we've chosen you as a Good Samaritan that we wanted to feature this week, because of how respectable and commendable that is that you took that initiative, that you saw this need, you did research, you checked it out, and then you brought it back here to where you saw other people could use it.
Right.
Following up with that, I'm wondering if you can explain a little bit more about what Sleep in Heavenly Peace actually does and the history of you bringing it into East Tennessee, as well as just the history in general.
Okay. It actually started back in 2012. A family in Twin Falls, Idaho, had a family down the street in their neighborhood that had hit some pretty rough times. And they lost quite a bit of the things, the property that they owned, and jobs, and just a normal disaster kind of thing for a family. And there was a young girl, a little girl. She was 5 years old at the time. Her name was Kaylee. She's now our poster child. She was the recipient of the very first bed that was built. What they did was, this family and a couple of friends went into the garage and decided they were going to do something for this family and build some beds for them. So they had no experience whatsoever in woodworking, which is another problem, but they were really willing to take it and tackle it and see what they could do with it. So they built a bed. It's kind of crude, but it served the purpose, and they provided a bed for that child, and it was right at Christmas time, 2012. So they had some wood left over, and they got together and said, I don't know what else we can do with this. Let's just build a couple of more and see what happens. So they did that, and they put it on social media and got all kinds of requests for the need, and so that's basically kind of how it took off. So, and this is one of the things that I was concerned about, because it sounded almost too good to be true that this kind of thing was happening. I knew there had to be needs like this in our area, and by going out there and actually experiencing it, talking to the people out there, and having the ability to actually go on a delivery while I was out there, that was the icing on the cake for me. I just knew that we needed that here, and was blessed to the point where I could bring the first chapter to Tennessee for it. So.
Amen. Certainly do appreciate that. Thank God for using you in that way to bring that work here. Something you mentioned there, we have spoken about this previously, and it impressed me then, and it does now also. As we talk about these Good Samaritans, talk about good works like this being done, how often they do begin with just that simple desire to reach out and to help. In this case, it was just to help one family with one bed.
Right.
And a little bit of inexperience and some miscalculation. They had extra parts, and they decided, well, let's help more people.
Right.
And it grew from there. And that's something I'm always impressed with, that passion,
Right.
that drive the Good Samaritan has. They see a need, they're going to go help. They're going to do something to meet that need. And that is, of course, what initially caught our attention to what you all are doing. Very similar to what you said. It just sounds too good to be true. There's people that they're just taking their time to make these beds to just take into people's homes so they have a bed. But when we're talking about that, I think it is important that we really do emphasize this for our listeners, because as you said, you were initially somewhat skeptical. You think about needs that people have. You think about how you can reach out and help someone, give them food, feed the hungry, give them clothing, give them shelter. These are things that Christ even said, that you did these things for the least, and you did them for me. Beds are one that you don't think about so often, but that's also something Christ talked about. He said, foxes have their holes. I have nowhere to lay my head, and that's a need that so often gets overlooked. And
Yep.
in your experience, you said that you went on these deliveries. You saw this yourself. You saw the need. Here in Campbell County, how is that experience reflected for you? How are you seeing that need in Campbell County for beds?
It's a lot greater than I ever dreamed. There's so many kids. There's no real hard statistics to prove this, but estimates show that if somewhere between 3 to 5% of all children throughout the country don't have a bed of their own to sleep in. And from what I have seen here in Campbell County and in East Tennessee, for that matter, it's much greater than that. It's much larger than that. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if it's 8% or more. It's just
terrible.
Yeah, it's really bad, and a lot of this can stem from the opioid issue that we have with the drugs and so forth. So I mean, sometimes parents get in situations that they really regret, but with the same token, they're there in it, and there's nothing they can do. And so by being able to do this for them means a lot to the kids, because they're in a lot of them are in situations that it's no fault of their own,
Right.
But so we kind of try to help step up with that.
Right, and again, I'm sure you've noticed this with the work you're doing here, just what a difference that makes in a child's life to just have a bed. Because
Right.
as we've discussed previously, you're going into homes where they're sleeping on pallets.
Right.
Or just they have blankets on the floor.
Right.
And that's what they call their bed.
Mhm.
And then you're giving them an actual comfortable bed.
Right.
And that's something I think of is sometimes people will fast and they will go without food for a certain length of time, and they can relate to what that would feel like to be forced
Right.
into hunger. I really do wonder how much greater people would recognize this need if for just 2 or 3 nights they would say, I'm not going to sleep in my bed.
That's true.
Yeah.
I'll sleep in my bed.
That's
And
true.
they realize just how much they miss that bed, what it means. But even beyond looking at the comfort factor that this gives that sort of sanctuary, this child has a bed that is their own, they're able to get a comfortable good night's sleep that helps them with their education, helps them be healthier. Beyond that, there's more logistical needs that I think often get overlooked. If we're talking, for example, custody, you mentioned the opioid crisis. One major fallout from that is a lot of parents don't have their children anymore. Grandparents or
Right.
their relatives are taking these children in. I've been in a situation like this with a relative trying to take custody, and you go through this year-long process of interviews, house inspections, paperwork, in and out of court. And the one thing that they would always harp on during these home inspections is bed.
That's right.
The child must have a bed. And you think if you are a grandmother, you're 65, 70 years old, and you suddenly have this need, you have to take in this young child,
Right.
and you're on a fixed income, and you're making it, month to month, beds are expensive.
Exactly.
How are you going to take this child
Right.
into your home when the
Right.
state is requiring you to have that bed?
Right.
And I think people really do overlook that. And have you noticed that with the work you're doing, that is a type of people that you're helping?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that made me skeptical in the beginning, was how was this being done? How were they providing a complete bed for these children? Because I know the expense of the bedding, and I know what it cost and what a family has to go through. And that was one of the things that kind of really stuck in my craw about trying to figure out, what's the deal with this, And we were very fortunate to be able to help a lot of the situations around here with DCS and CASA and all the different groups that deal with situations like that. And I see the hoops that the families have to jump through in a lot of cases to get the kids back to the home, to get the family back together again. So I mean, it's a very long process for them, and like you say, right toward the end of the process, that's the one thing that can be a stickler, is do they have a bed for the child? And that's hopefully where we can jump in there and help them out.
That's great. As always in our interviews, one of my favorite questions to ask is if do you have a particular moment that really tugged at your heartstrings, and what sparked that passion in you, to get involved in that?
Okay, I actually had 2 moments. I'll tell you, the first moment happened when I was out in Idaho and had the opportunity to make a delivery. There was a couple of groups that were in pickup trucks that we had all the bedding and stuff in. And we were in the first truck, and we pulled up to this house, and the mom and dad came running out, and they were crying. They knew we were coming, and they knew the situation. I had no clue. So I mean, I was the outsider, and this was my first experience. And to make a long story short, we went through the process of getting it all put together and all set up and everything. But I did notice that there was only 3 kids, and we were delivering 2 bunks. And I thought, well, that's kind of strange because, you know, you don't normally give something that's not needed. And I talked to the mother, and she says, well, these are all siblings. They're not our children. We've adopted them, but they're all siblings. And by us bringing that to those 2 bunks, we were going to be able to have them be able to bring the family, the 4th sibling from South Carolina, to come live with them.
Oh, wow.
And so that put the kids back together in the family unit that they needed to be in. But I had a family here in La Follette that the little girl was, I think she was 5. I believe she was 5 years old. She was very shy, and it was a single bed delivery. And she kind of stood outside the door while we were putting everything together. And we try to get the kids involved to help us. We let them use the drills and whatever we can do to kind of get them involved, make it more of their own. And she stood outside, and I had the new pillow that we were dropping off, and it was sitting kind of by the doorway, and we had the bed all made. And I motioned for her to come on in, and she reached down and she grabbed the pillow, and she took it and she pulled it right over the top of her head, and she says, "Is this mine?"
Oh.
And I said, "Yeah, that's yours." And she, "Can I keep it?" And I said, "Absolutely." And I said, "Let me show you something else." And I said, "This bed, this is yours too." And she says, "No, that's mine too." And it just really tugged at your heart. We had one of the quilts that we had given to her was handmade by a lady here in Jacksboro. She had made a bunch of handmade quilts for us last year. And one of the quilts was given to that little girl. And she says, "I'll keep this forever. This is mine." And, you know, stuff like that sticks with you, and it makes you want to do more.
Yes.
And
That's
it's
precious.
just, I'll never forget the little girl. So it was pretty awesome. Pretty awesome.
That really is awesome.
It is. So with all the work that you do, I know it's got to take a lot of people, a lot of manpower. So what do you do with volunteers? Do you take volunteers, and are they required to have certain skills?
Okay. We always take volunteers, and you don't have to know anything about woodworking at all. We have a team of probably 7 or 9 people that are familiar with each step of the process that we have, and they actually work with the volunteers, and hopefully, as the time goes on, the volunteers that come can actually take over those positions for us and kind of help train somebody else new. But we're always looking for volunteers, always.
Do you get a large array of different volunteers?
Oh yeah. I've got a list of 60 plus from all over the area. I've got it's from Kentucky to Oak Ridge, Crossville. I've even got a family of a mom and 4 kids that come from Greenville to our build days. So it's kind of there's no age limit. We've had 4-year-olds helping us. We've got different things that they can do, and we had a 94-year-old gentleman doing the branding for us. So I mean, it's if you fit anywhere in there, 4 to 94, you're good to go. You know.
That's excellent.
It really is. That is absolutely amazing. If you are keeping count at home, because I say that too much, that's number 1. But that truly is amazing. Number 2, that you offer those kind of volunteer opportunities, and especially fitting in with the spirit of how this began in the first place. People just need to be willing. And again, that's something I like to emphasize when we're talking about Good Samaritan, talking about people willing to volunteer and become Good Samaritans, which is what we hope our listeners are inspired to do when they hear these stories, that they themselves will reach out and become a Good Samaritan. And someday we can have them in here and talk with them. And all they need is to be willing.
That's right.
They don't need to be a carpenter. They don't need to have ever worked in a factory. They don't need to be physically fit or anything. They just need to be willing, and you'll find something for them to do. Right. And if they want, you'll even train them up so that they'll be better able to do more down the road for them. Exactly.
We have people that man the check-in tables, handle the refreshments, help us unload and load and set up, and there's just all kinds of things that you can. Don't ever say you can't help, because there's something for everyone.
Yeah. How do they get a hold of you if they want to help?
Well, they can go to their website, shpbeds.org, and they can click on volunteer, and they can sign up there. My phone number, they can give me a call as well. My phone number is 407-678-2638. They can reach me anytime there. And also for people that are in need of beds, that's the same place. Everything has to go through the website for that.
Okay.
There's a request a bed button on the website, and they can click on that and fill out the form.
Again, can you give us the phone number one more time?
Yeah, the phone number is 407-678-2638.
Okay, and where are you located?
I live in Caryville.
You live in Caryville.
I live in Caryville. Yeah.
So the business is in one general location, or are you mobile?
Yeah, we're mobile. We have all of our tools in a 16-foot trailer, and that's the neat thing about it. We don't have a certain location where we do the bills and all that. Wherever the sponsor is where we go.
Okay.
So that's the really neat thing about it. Really neat thing about that.
So if someone wants to be a sponsor for you to do one of these builds, how would they go about that?
Well, the best thing to do would be to call me, and we can go through the process of what it takes to do that. A bunk cost about $350, and that's a complete package. That's the wood, the lumber, the mattress, all the bedding, and the pillows, and everything is included in that. And we try to, it's a logistical nightmare if you don't have very much. I mean, it's just as easy to build 5 as it is 25, as far as logistics go. But we try to keep it at a minimum of 5 bunks. That seems to be, pretty much our bottom line. Now, we'll do less than that. Just depends on the situation and what the group is. I'm working right now with a Baptist church in Wartburg that has contacted me in the last week or so, wanting help in their community. So we're looking at going to Wartburg and doing the build and giving them the beds and all that, and then they'll take care of it from there, because it's way out of our area. But they need the help, and we're the ones that want to help. So that's what we're going to do.
Amazing. Number 3 there, by the way. You raised an interesting question there, talking about sort of the borders of the area you cover. For anyone that is curious, anyone that needs this assistance, what exactly is the coverage area for Sleep in Heavenly Peace right now in East Tennessee?
Okay. We're in Campbell, Anderson, and part of Knox County. If you go to the website and you click on Request a Bed, you'll come to a section that says pick your zip code. And your zip code must be listed for us to be able to go there. It's all done by zip codes rather than just say counties or what have you. We're able to cover more that way. I think we've got 23 zip codes we cover, something like that. So it's a pretty big area.
That's impressive.
Pretty big area, yeah.
Now, do you get donations or sponsorships? Do you do fundraisers, and how does that work?
Well, donations is our lifeblood. If we didn't have the donations as well as the volunteers, we couldn't exist. Everything, because we're all volunteers, no one gets paid. It's all based off donations, and whatever you're led or feel like you can do to help us, that's all we can ask, because it does take quite a bit to keep the thing going. Mm-hmm. It really does.
I want to say, speaking with you previously, you'd mentioned that where the money is donated toward, like within the county,
Mm-hmm.
it stays within the county.
That's correct. Yeah, if money comes in from La Follette or Jacksboro, whatever, the money stays there. We don't take it and build beds in Knoxville or Oak Ridge or whatever. And the same thing for them. If we receive donations from there, then it stays there. It's worked out really well for us to this point. I mean, even though we're fairly young at this, that seems to have worked really well for us. It's hard to keep up with at times, but with the same token, I feel like it's very important for us to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great.
That certainly is very commendable. That I'm sure gives an extra sense of assurance
Mm-hmm.
to donors that they know what they're donating. They're going to see their
Exactly.
neighbors
Right.
benefit
Right.
from that directly.
Exactly.
So that's a very wonderful thing indeed. Something else you mentioned, this is one of those things I really like to harp on with Good Samaritan any chance I get, is you're working with the Baptist church over around Wartburg currently
Mm-hmm.
to reach out to people in need. And as I've said in the past, that is a secret goal I've had for Good Samaritan, is that as we draw more attention to people such as you and your organization, the work you all are doing, that other Good Samaritans are going to hear that and going to be inspired to work with you. So instead of having a bunch of people working individually in their own little cells, doing their own little things, we can see more people coming together to accomplish more. And I do want to commend you for reaching out and working with another group, and just take this opportunity to encourage our listeners to do the same. If we have other Good Samaritans out there, reach out to you, see what they can do to help you, see how you can help them, and see if we can help more people.
Exactly. Yep, exactly.
So, Bill, one other really important question I have for you that we've not directly discussed yet is, as you already said, there's no exact statistics of what the precise need is for beds, especially for children, but I'm sure you have some particular statistic that our listeners would like to know, and that is, how many beds are you distributing? How many beds are you delivering to people currently?
Okay. Well, I can give you last year's numbers. That would be the best thing to do. We built 116 bunks throughout the year. We had 9 different build days for that, and they were all sponsored by different groups in different areas. And we delivered 242 beds.
Wow.
Not bunks, but beds. So I was very pleased with that. I had no idea when we started what numbers we were even looking at. But of course, at that time, I didn't know where we were going to get the first dollar from either. So it was a tremendous year for us as far as being able to help kids everywhere. That's not in Campbell County. That's the whole entire area that we cover. Yeah, that's the whole thing. In Campbell County, I would say probably close to 60 is what we delivered.
Wow.
I don't have that exact number, but it's close to 60. So I'm looking forward to this year. I think we've already delivered 30, I think, for this year already, and so it's going to be much greater than what it was last year. So because the need's not going to go away.
Right.
I mean, I've got 86, I think it is, that are on the waiting list right now for the entire area. I think there's 14 in Campbell County. So there's a tremendous need that we're going to have to continue to work for.
So last year you had a build day out here in Campbell County.
Oh, we had several, yes.
Several? Okay.
Yeah, we had several here. We had, our biggest one was probably what we called Bunks and Burgers. It was next to ORNL in the Food City parking lot. That was in September, and we built 25 bunks that day in about 3 hours.
Wow.
And we had about 60 volunteers, which the more volunteers you have, the faster it goes. Naturally, because you can do more,
Right.
We also had a build day at the United Cumberland Bank in front of Walmart back in the spring last year, and we built 11 bunks that day, I think. Of course, we had issues with weather we were concerned about. We thought it was going to rain, so we set everything up in their drive-through. And we were able to make it work.
That's awesome.
And so
Really
and it's flexible. We can do
Yeah.
pretty much whatever. I mean, we probably covered almost 100 feet by, I'd say probably 30 by 100 over in the Food City parking lot. And then if you know the size of the UCB bank drive-through area, it's much smaller. So we have to work things down, but it all worked and it was
So
good.
when people see that you're building, do you notice that more people get inspired and they just join your team?
Oh, actually, yes, they sure do. They really do. As well, they come and want to help. They want to know what's going on. They've never seen anything like it before, and I can see that because there really hasn't been anything like it before. Because it's, we have power generators and we use the drills and miter saws and
That is so neat. That's
sanders.
something I would join.
It's
If I would have
something that,
known.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's, and I'm not sure. We're working on an event toward the end of February, and then we're going to do something probably in the month of March, and I'm not sure where or anything about that yet because we're kind of waiting on the group in Wartburg. I've kind of promised them that we would, get over there, and because they've got a list, I think, put together of who needs what, and then we'll just build according to that and let them, kind of have it. Normally, that's a good thing for us. It gives us the ability to go outside of our area and help in different areas. And,
Yeah, expand, definitely.
it's not like we don't have enough to do, but with the same token, I don't want to tell somebody no. in another area that needs the help,
Yeah.
Right.
especially if they come to us and ask for it. So, and that's what they did. So,
Well, as we start heading toward a wrap up, Bill, going back to talk about those in need, just want to press those numbers again in case our listeners still have any doubt about the need. With 242, I believe you said, for last year, 86 on waiting list, 30 already delivered this year. We're looking at well over 300 beds in just 13-month time
Right.
that you see an active need for in the East Tennessee region. That
Right.
is an astounding
Yep.
need. People just needing a bed, something that so many people just take for granted every single day. They're laying in their bed at night thinking about how bad their life is, not realizing that at
That's
least
right.
they have a bed.
exactly.
Yeah.
That so many people don't
Yeah.
have. So
Exactly.
again, we are just so impressed with the work you all are doing, that you have found a need that no one was meeting, that you are taking that effort with your own hands, reaching out there, helping these people, and doing it with such a gracious spirit also. Again, why we have you here as a Good Samaritan, and it's been an honor to have you here with us, Bill.
Thank
Yes,
you.
it has,
I enjoyed
absolutely.
it. Thank you for having me.